You're listening to The Jacob Volk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobVolk. Here he is, Jacob Volk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Volk Show. I am Jacob Volk, and I have to start with my beloved New York Islanders not being able to put away the Panthers yesterday, losing 3-2 in a really bad game. They did not play well. I mean, when you give up 2 power play goals, and the penalties that allowed those power plays to happen are boneheaded penalties, yeah, that's an issue. I mean, tell me how Semyon Varlamov plays the puck out of the trapezoid! Tell me how that happens in a playoff game that allowed the power play that got the tying goal. What a boneheaded play. I mean, I'm screaming at the TV. What on God's green earth are you doing? And to make matters worse, the first power play goal, the goal that made it 1-0 Panthers, was on a bench minor. Too many men. What on God's green earth are these guys doing? You have an opportunity to sweep the Panthers. You can rest up for your next opponent. God only knows who it's going to be. You had all the momentum. Joel Quenneville trying a million different things. Taking Matheson and Sevier out of the lineup. Throwing anything at the wall and seeing what sticks. And you get a too many men penalty! You see your goalie commit one of the rarest penalties in the sport? The Panthers didn't win this game. The Islanders lost it. The Panthers didn't play great. They weren't bad, but they weren't great. They capitalized on the Islanders' mistakes. That's what I said they needed to do. Believe it or not, I actually know a little bit about sports. Have I gotten some of my predictions wrong? Absolutely. I'm human. But the gist of what I was saying, that the Panthers needed to capitalize on the Islanders' mistakes, holy moly, was I proven right. The too many men, the delay of game, how does that happen? I mean, it's bad enough that it happens, but you can live with it if you kill the penalty. 2 power play goals on a team that's made their identity on defense. This isn't a team that's going to win 5-4 games. They're going to win 1-0 games. And that team gives up 2 power play goals. That is inexcusable. And you allow Brian Old Man Boyle, to get the puck when you turn it over in your own zone, and he rips a shot past Varlamov. I mean, again, it's capitalizing on mistakes. Give the Panthers credit. They did what they needed to do. But it's upsetting to me as an Islander fan, because the Panthers didn't play great. They didn't generate any of their scoring opportunities. The Islanders were just stupid. You've got a too many men, an asinine delay of game, and a turnover in the defensive zone. The Panthers didn't do anything great. The Islanders just played like garbage. You want to tell me this is just one game and they can still win this series? Jacob, you're overreacting? No, I'm not. No. I've seen this movie before. The Islanders played great early on, and then they just collapse. I've seen the movie before. I've seen it in seasons. I've seen it in playoff series. No, I don't think I'm overreacting. Can they still win Game 4 and we'll forget all about Game 3? Of course. Yes. The Islanders actually played better than the Panthers, with the exception of those 3 incredibly stupid moments. The lineup changes sorta kinda worked. I mean, the Islanders did get less opportunities. They only had 4 shots on goal in the second period. They only had 22 shots. That's not going to work. I mean, to put that into perspective, Game 1, they had 28. And Game 2, they had 36. That's a huge drop-off. The changes that Quenneville made worked. But, it didn't result in the Panthers playing better offensively. It just resulted in them playing better defensively. The Islanders can still win this thing. Just be disciplined. Barry Trotz and J.G. Pageau were both saying the same thing after the game. I'll paraphrase it. We've got to go back to playing disciplined hockey. That's how we got here in the first place, or something along those lines. Like I said, they can still win this thing, but this was a painful loss. And if there's a team that could blow a 2-0 series lead, it would be the Islanders. That would be so apropos of them, based on their history. Do I think it's going to happen? No, but I'd be lying to you if I said I was 100% confident. Let's put it this way. I'm exponentially less confident now than I was 24 hours ago. Moving on now to Predators, Coyotes, and I gotta tell you, as crazy as this is to say, because the Coyotes won 4-1, the Predators outplayed them. The Predators deserved to win. They dominated all throughout that game. They outshot the Coyotes 19-9 in the first period. The Coyotes reminded me of the Islanders. You let yourself get outshot, but you just capitalize on the few scoring opportunities you have. I really didn't think they played bad. The Coyotes played great. This was a case of two teams playing really, really well. And going after each other hard. Playing a really exciting game. I mean, make no mistake about it, it was close. The 4-1 goal was an empty netter. Give Carl Soderberg credit, I guess. But I didn't think the Predators played bad at all. I actually thought they were pretty good. The Coyotes played great. Darcy Kemper stood on his head. They got their big guns cooking. Guys like Hall, Dvorak, Ekman Larson, Kessel, Stepan, Hjalmarsson, Keller. Yeah, you didn't like to see them get outshot and outplayed if you were a Coyotes fan, but ultimately it doesn't matter. Just matters how many goals you have. And the Coyotes capitalized on their opportunities. This was very reminiscent of an Islander game. I mean, if you're the Predators, the one thing I would say is focus on getting more than one line cooking. The only line that's been producing in this series for them is the Jofa line. Ryan Johansson, Philip Forsberg, and Victor Arvidsson, the Jofa line. Other than that, everyone's been invisible. Their defense, their fantastic defense, Josi, Ellis, Ekholm, etc., etc. They've been invisible. Duchesne has been invisible. Craig Smith has been invisible. You can't have just one line clicking if you're gonna win a playoff series. But there are some positives here for the Predators. Those other players got good scoring opportunities, they just have to capitalize on them. If I'm John Hynes, I'm not changing anything too radically. They played well enough to win. They just have to tighten up defensively. They have the best D-man core in the NHL. They just have to act like it. Moving on now to Lightning Bruins. And the Bruins have really disappointed me. At the time of the pause, they were, without question, the best team in the NHL. They had everything. Great offense, great defense, great 1-2 punch in net, great coach, great everything. But in these 2 games that they've played so far, they've been lifeless. They have not played well at all. The Lightning outplayed them in basically every period. Rask played well, but he wasn't great. Rask should be the starter going forward because he was better than Halak, but the way Rask played didn't inspire a lot of confidence in me. I mean, they went 0 for 4 on the power play. They lost despite winning 61% of the face-offs. They were really bad defensively in this game. I feel like part of it is that they just expected to run roughshod in this tournament like they did throughout the regular season. And you know what? That's not going to work. Everyone's starting at 0. And the Bruins are proving that. They're really not playing well at all. They've gotten some production from guys who you wouldn't expect. Chris Wagner's played well. But all due respect to Chris Wagner, and I like him a lot, he can't be your best offensive player if you're going to win. And going over to the Lightning, the key for them, I said yesterday, was they couldn't be intimidated by the Bruins. They couldn't back down. And they didn't. Barclay Goodrow was all over the place making plays. Blake Coleman got into a fight with Torrey Krug. I give the Lightning credit. They played a really good physical game. And that, combined with the fact that they got their big guns cooking, everyone who you wanted to see get on the score sheet got on the score sheet for the Lightning, with the exception of Sergachev and maybe McDonough. But other than that, they got production from all their forwards. Vasilevsky played really well. This was a great game for the Lightning. If they play like this going forward, they're going to be a really tough out in the playoffs. Moving on now to Avalanche Stars. And if I was a Stars fan, I would be terrified. You blew a 2-goal third-period lead to the Golden Knights in your first round-robin game. And then in this game, you look dead to the world. You give up 40 shots. You take 5 penalties. I mean, when Pavel Francouz is shutting you out, you have issues. All due respect to Pavel Francouz, he's a solid backup, but he's not going to be mistaken for Patrick Waugh anytime soon, or David Abisher anytime soon. It's possible that Rick Bowness is punting these games. He really doesn't care about seeding. But the Stars, at the time of the pause, were the second coldest team in the NHL. The coldest was the Islanders. And I thought the pause could really benefit them, but they've continued their bad habits. They're really not playing well. There's really nothing I can say positively about them. The one thing I would say to Stars fans to try to make them happy is it's possible that this is Rick Bowness's plan. He doesn't want them going all out in round-robin play, and he'll just focus on the playoff series. But if that's his strategy, and that's a big if, that's a terrible strategy. Because you can't just flip a switch and then play great. That's something that you need to build to. And the Stars are not doing that. I'd be very scared right now if I was a Stars fan. But if I was an Avalanche fan, I'd be really happy. I mean, I don't know how much of this was the Avalanche playing well as much as it was the Stars playing bad. It's probably somewhere in the middle. I'm not trying to take anything away from what the Avalanche did. They played really well. They played great defensively. Offensively, they were cooking. But I don't know if this is a win you can hang your hat on as an Avalanche fan. I'm not sure how gung-ho the Stars were on winning this game. I'm not trying to take anything away from the Avalanche. They did play well, but this isn't something to write home about. They're a good team. They've been playing well, but I wouldn't read too much into this win. Moving over now to Penguins-Canadiens, and I have a friend whose name is Joe. Big hockey fan, big Rangers fan. He said before this series that the Canadiens had a really good chance of upsetting the Penguins. I thought he was nuts. Did the Canadiens have the better goalie? The answer is yes. Carey Price is still one of the best goalies in the NHL. I understand that this was a down year for him, but he's still a great goalie. I would take him on my team in a heartbeat. And he thought that could be the deciding factor in this series. Joe, I hope you play Lotto tonight, because so far, you're right. The Penguins are not playing well. Their best player has probably been, if not Crosby, Brandon Tanev, Jason Zucker. Malkin's been invisible. Gensel's been good, but he hasn't been great. Chris Letang has been absolutely invisible. Patrick Marleau has been god-awful in this series. He's a -4. The Penguins are playing down to the Canadiens. The Penguins are the better team on paper. You can't tell me they're not. If I'm building for the future, I'd probably rather have the Canadiens roster, but as of right now, give me the Penguins roster. But the Penguins are not playing well. I give Brandon Tanev credit. Alright, he was in on every play, trying to make stuff happen. Really, really played well. The Teddy Bluger goal was a fantastic setup by Tanev to outskate the Canadiens' defenseman. Victor Mete was unbelievable. And it started the scrum that got Bluger the goal. Tanev has been great. Crosby has been really, really good. Zucker's been great. After that, there's nothing. Their defense has been terrible. The one day they actually get to Carey Price, they give up 4 goals. How do you allow that? Paul Byron burying his own rebound. Jeff Petrie scoring from an impossible angle. Think about this. Jeff Petrie has 2 game-winning goals. If you're a Penguins fan, you can live with guys like Tomas Tatar, Philip Danault, Max Domi, Brendan Gallagher, Nick Suzuki, or Jesperi Kotkaniemi having 2 game-winning goals. Even Shea Weber. But not Jeff Petrie. That doesn't work. This guy isn't a goal scorer. This guy only scored 11 goals all year. He now has 2 game-winning goals in the playoffs. The Penguins are playing really down to the Canadiens. I don't even think the Canadiens have played great. This is just a case of the Penguins thinking that they're going to run roughshod over the Canadiens, and Mike Sullivan hasn't been able to get through to his team that they still need to try. Yeah, they've gotten a bunch of shots on Carey Price. Carey Price, midway through this game, already had 100 saves in this series. In under 3 games. The Penguins were getting opportunities, they just weren't converting. These are some of the best hockey players in the world. And they're within 1 loss of going home to an inferior Canadiens team. To a Canadiens team that never should have been here in the first place. If I was a Penguins fan, I'd be screaming and hollering. Even if they come back and win this series, how can you be confident in them going forward? They have been lifeless. They have been anemic. They have been absolutely dreadful. But I'll hit on the Canadiens a little bit more. I give them credit for finally supporting Carey Price. They almost outshot the Penguins in this game. The Penguins outshot them 33-31. But that's basically even. I can live with that. But they got 4 goals. I mean, they were down 3-1. And I think everyone watching was thinking, okay, the Penguins are going to win this game easily. You know, game 1 was a fluke. Order is going to be restored. But the Canadiens came storming back. They're playing like a team that wants to be here. The Penguins aren't. Moving on now to Oilers Blackhawks. And I gotta tell ya, this is a really tough series to get into. Because neither one of these teams are good. Yes, the Oilers have some really talented forwards. McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent-Hopkins. Even a guy like Tyler Ennis is really fun to watch. Zach Kassian plays the game the right way. And James Neal provides a good veteran presence for him. But their defense is just god-awful. Their goaltending is horrific. How on God's green earth do you watch that, Oilers fans? I'd be screaming my head off. The Blackhawks went 1 for 6 on the power play, yet still won. They allowed guys like Matthew Highmore and Connor Murphy to score third-period goals. The game-tying goal and the game-winning goal. 5 seconds left in the first period. You're this close to killing a penalty. This close. And Jonathan Toews is able to put the puck in the net. I understand it was 5-on-3, but when you're 5 seconds away from intermission, that doesn't work. You cannot give up that goal. Poor Connor McDavid. I mean, really. This guy is doing everything out there. Draisaitl finally shows up. And maybe too little too late. The Oilers' defense is beyond bad. I didn't realize how bad it was. I love watching their forwards, but their defense and their goaltending makes them unwatchable. They're really going to lose this series to a Blackhawks team that's playing like garbage. Corey Crawford hasn't had a game in this series where he's allowed less than 3 goals. He's beatable. He's not the Corey Crawford of old. This is a Blackhawks team that's the youngest team in the league. They really don't have a lot of experience. We think they do because of their big guns, guys like Kane, Keith, Toews, and Crawford. They really don't. They're anchored by young guns, guys like Kubalik and Debrincat and Strome and Nylander. I mean, how are the Oilers losing to this team? The Oilers are the better team. By far. It's not even close. I don't even know if this is a case of them playing down to the Blackhawks as much as it is a case of their defense just being exposed. Jeremy Colleton is a very cerebral coach. He's very good at finding weaknesses and exploiting them. He's devised a really, really good game plan to make the Oilers' defense work. And Oscar Klefbom has not played well. Darnell Nurse has not played well. Ethan Bear has been dreadful. This is a really tough series to watch, because neither team is playing well. But one of them is going to advance. The Penguins-Canadiens series, it's easy to get into that because you've got the young, hotshot Canadiens overtaking a Penguins team that's been very successful. They've got a bunch of Stanley Cups in the past 15 years or so. That's easy to get into. The Blackhawks beating the Oilers, that's not easy to get into. The Canadiens at least have a great goalie in Carey Price, so that's something you can latch on to. The Blackhawks have nothing. And if by some miracle the Oilers come back, they better hope they get matched up against a defense-first team. Because if they get matched up against an offensive juggernaut, they're going to go home. It's just that simple. Alright, now it's time to preview today's 5 games. Yeah, that's right. It's only 5 games because the Hurricanes swept the Rangers. So, I have a lighter workload. I like it. I'll start with Canucks Wild. And I'll start with the Canucks. The number one thing would be just tighten up. Game 1, you played like garbage. You got shut out. In Game 2, you nearly blew. I mean, let's face it. The Canucks have not played great in this series. They have really good players, but that goaltending just scares me. Jacob Markstrom is solid, but he's nothing special. There's some goalies that are just good in the regular season, and when they get to the playoffs, they fold like a cheap suit. It's possible that that's going to be Jacob Markstrom. As for the Wild, they've got to get their big guns rolling. Alright? Kunin and Fiala cannot do it by themselves. Alex Stalock had a really good game in Game 1. He got the shutout, but Game 2, he came back down to earth. He needs some support. The Wild really need guys like Suter and Stahl and Parise and Zuccarello to step up and play like their contracts dictate that they should. The Wild have never been afraid to spend in free agency. Unfortunately for them, it really hasn't resulted in a lot of playoff success. Now, those guys that I've mentioned, with the exception of Zuccarello, have gotten on the score sheet with assists, but I want them to score. They're capable of putting the puck in the net. And no one's going to be mistaking Jacob Markstrom for Martin Brodeur anytime soon. This isn't a tall ask. Play up to your contracts. Fiala has had a great season. I like Fiala a lot. And Kunin is a solid player, very underrated, plays the game the right way. But if the Wild are going to win this series, they need their high-priced guys to show up. Moving on now to Capitals Flyers. For the Capitals, I would say try to get Ovechkin going a little bit more. He was really invisible against the Lightning. I'd like him to step up against whoever's going to be starting for the Flyers, Carter Hart or Brian Elliott. I mean, as Ovechkin goes, so do the Capitals. If he's going to be invisible, the Capitals are going to lose. If he's going to show up and play, the Capitals are going to win. It's just that simple. As for the Flyers, I would say just go back to Hart. Play exactly like you played against the Bruins, because you dominated them. Yeah, the Bruins haven't been playing great, but the Flyers outclassed them exponentially. This is a young Flyers team, anchored by a 21-year-old goalie. Carter Hart. His 22nd birthday is a week from today. They also have some young guns like Konechny and Ivan Provorov. Yeah, they have veterans too, like Couturier and Voracek and Giroux and Hayes and Van Riemsdyk, but their young guns really carry them. Konechny was their leading scorer, and Hart was by far and away their best goalie. Don't change the formula. This format, this round-robin format, is actually really going to benefit the Flyers because it's going to get their young guns big game experience without there being any cataclysmic consequence if they don't play well. If they all disappear, yeah, they're not getting as good as seeding, but they're still in the playoffs. If they had just gone straight into one of these elimination series, the Young Guns wouldn't have that luxury. This format really benefits the Flyers. Moving on now to Golden Knights Blues. The one thing I would say to the Golden Knights would be to just come out better. Because against the Stars, they came out flat. They really didn't show up until the third period where they scored 4 unanswered goals. I understand that Chandler Stevenson scored 64 seconds into the game, but after that, they were lifeless. 1 goal does not a good team make. The Stars were outplaying them for the first and second periods. The Golden Knights need to come out stronger. The Blues play a 60-minute game. They're not going to be able to flip a switch and score 4 unanswered goals against Jordan Binnington. He's better than that. As for the Blues, I wouldn't change too much. I don't think they played bad against the Avalanche. Kadri just got insanely lucky. A millisecond later, that's not a goal. And that game goes into overtime. And the Blues can win. Alright, maybe that's the lesson. Clear the puck when you're in your own zone late. Ice the puck if you have to. But other than that, the Blues played well enough to win. Maybe get their offense cooking a little bit more, but Binnington is the kind of goalie that you can count on in the playoffs. It's remarkable for a kid like that. Very limited experience. This is only his second year as a full-time starter in the NHL, and he carried the Blues through the playoffs last year. He can do it again. The Blues offense doesn't need to be great. It can just be good to very good. That's such a huge luxury to have a goalie like Binnington. Moving on now to Maple Leafs Blue Jackets. A series that has been really, really even. The Blue Jackets shut out the Maple Leafs in Game 1, and the Maple Leafs shut out the Blue Jackets in Game 2. It's pretty simple what the Maple Leafs need to do. They need to stick with what worked. In Game 2, they made a concerted effort to keep the puck in the Blue Jackets zone. They didn't let a lot of shots through to Frederik Andersen. He only had to make 20 saves. The Maple Leafs had 39 shots on goal. That is insane. They almost doubled up the Blue Jackets in shots on goal. Stick with that formula. I'd like for the Maple Leafs to be better on the power play. They've been 0 for 6 in this series, but their penalty kill has been really good, so they've made up for it, I guess. The Blue Jackets are 0 for 6 on the power play also, so this series is probably going to come down to special teams. It'll be very interesting to see who cracks. If I had to put money on it, I'd say the Maple Leafs are going to win this series. I think they're the better team. But The Blue Jackets played great in Game 1. They thoroughly outclassed the Maple Leafs. As for the Blue Jackets, it's really similar. Go back to what worked in Game 1. Force the issue. This series is going to come down to two things. Alright? I'll boil it down to this. It's going to come down to special teams, who's going to have a good power play and who's going to cave on penalty kills, and who's going to spend the most time in the offensive zone. Because that's how the Blue Jackets won in Game 1, and that's how the Maple Leafs won in Game 2. This has been a really evenly matched series. I didn't expect it to be this evenly matched, but give John Tortorella a ton of credit. His teams always play great in the playoffs. Sheldon Keefe had his work cut out for him to make the necessary adjustments in Game 2. I think I called him DJ Smith a few podcasts ago. I apologize for that. DJ Smith is the head coach of the Senators and is nowhere near as good as Sheldon Keefe. So it's going to be very interesting to see who makes the necessary adjustments in Game 3. Gun to my head, I'd say the Maple Leafs are going to win, but I'm not 100% confident in that pick. Moving on now to Flames-Jets, without question, the most exciting playoff series that we've had so far. I'll start with the Flames. In Game 3, they did what they needed to do. They took advantage of the Jets' injuries. No Scheifele, no Laine, no Appleton, and no Perreault. That's very hard to come back from. The Flames took advantage of that, and they destroyed the Jets in Game 3. They need to keep taking advantage of the Jets' sudden lack of talent. As for the Jets, this series really comes down to 4 people. Connor Hellebuyck, Kyle Connor, Blake Wheeler, and Nikolai Ehlers. The Jets need all 4 of those guys to play the best hockey of their lives if they're going to win this series. Don't give me any next man up stuff. That doesn't work. That's very rare that works. At the end of the day, if you're without some of your stars, go to your other stars. Scheifele and Laine are stars, and Appleton and Perreault are really important bottom 6 forwards for the Jets. They're not going to find guys that can take over for them 100%, but what they can do is ask Hellebuyck to stand on his head. He's done it before in the playoffs. He can do it again. They need Nick Ehlers to keep playing well. They need Blake Wheeler to provide a calming veteran presence and to contribute on the score sheet. And they need Kyle Connor to prove why he is one of the most exciting young players in the NHL. If all 4 of those guys show out tonight and Saturday night, the Jets are going to win this series. If not, the Flames are going to win this series. Tomorrow, you're going to get another Total Hockey show. I hope you enjoy these. I'm enjoying doing them. The Stanley Cup playoffs are the best playoffs in sports. So, the more the merrier, I say. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Volk, giving you an actual quote from Tris Speaker. And I quote, "Ruth made a grave mistake when he gave up pitching. Working once a week, he might have lasted a long time and become a great star."